Thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight. We are so happy to have you. I'm Nayla, and I'm here with the Coast Fork Willamette Watershed Council. Tonight, we are very excited. This is our first Science on Tap presentation of 2026. So thank you all so much for being here, and thank you to the Axe and Fiddle for having us. Starting off with some brief watershed updates. As many of you may know, we have the privilege of working with Heather Endicott, our wonderful, wonderful Heather. She designed our calendars, she designed our new logo, and has made so much beautiful art. So today happens to be her birthday. So happy birthday to Heather. We are so grateful to have you and your creative spirit. There are also some bird walks coming up here soon. So on March 15th will be a bird walk, and we have Grace Fowler in the building today. Grace's hand is up. If you have any questions about bird walks, Grace is the person to ask. Yes, and that will be March 15th. Our presentation that we will be having tonight is Laura Johnson from the Department of Environmental Quality, Drinking Water Protection Specialist, as well as Faye Stewart, City of Cottage Grove Public Works Director, and they will be presenting on From Stream to Tap, how Oregon public water systems are supporting clean drinking water by starting with the source. Alrighty, everybody, it is that time. Trivia time is the time indeed. Starting off the trivia with question 1. In what year was Cottage Grove incorporated the first time? Is it A, 1887, B, 1859, C, 1862, or D, 1851? Amazing. Question 2. How many gallons of treated water storage does the City of Cottage Grove have? Is it A, 2 million gallons, B, at 200 million gallons, C, at 4.2 million gallons, or D, at 15? Question 3 coming on up. Which creek did Cottage Grove receive the first water rights to? Is it A, Lane Creek, B, Mosby Creek, and this is actually a photo from a restoration site for improving northwestern pond turtle habitat, C, Bryce Creek, or D, Sharps Creek? All beautiful places within our watershed. Question 4 coming on up. What water filtration system does the City of Cottage Grove use? Do we think it's A, activated carbon, B, sand filtration, C, Brita? Some of you may have one as well. Keep it in your fridge, quite handy. D, membrane treatment vessels. Alrighty. We are coming up on question 5, so we are halfway through. What year did the Oregon legislature approve combining the towns of Cottage Grove and Lamadi? Perfect. Question 6. Which Oregon county has the fewest public water systems, which can be either surface water or groundwater? Which county has the fewest public water systems? Do we think it's A, Gilliam County, B, Wheeler County, C, Lincoln County, or D, Lake County? All right, and then the next question is the opposite of that. Which Oregon county has the most public water systems using either surface water or groundwater? Give it your best guess. Do we think it's A, Multnomah County, B, Lane County, C, Jackson County, or D, Clackamas County? Alrighty. Beautiful. Question 8 coming on up. Perfect. Which of the following activities is an example of drinking water protection when completed in a watershed where the drinking water is provided to the community? Do we think it's, if you can't read it, if you can't see it in the back, I'll read it for you. Partnering with private landowners to protect and enhance streamside vegetation, or monitoring forest operations through the Oregon Department of Forestry, their online notification system, and providing comments, public comment as appropriate. Is it forest thinning to reduce wildfire risk? There's also installing green stormwater projects in municipal areas, for example, rain gardens or bioswales, some of which you may have seen. Or do we think it's 5, all of the above, help support drinking water protection when completed in a watershed that provides drinking water to a community? Amazing. Question 9 is a true or false question. More Oregonians who rely on community public water systems for their water supply. So more people who rely on public water systems for their water supply drink groundwater than surface water. Is that a true statement? So more people who rely on community public water systems for their water supply drink groundwater than surface water. Do we think it's A, true, or B, false? Alrighty, question 10, last question. Amazing. How many miles of water distribution lines does the city of Cottage Grove have? A, 22 miles of water distribution lines. B, 33 miles of water distribution lines. C, 49 miles of water distribution lines. Or D, 55 miles. And this is the last question. Make it count.
I'm Laura Johnson. I work with the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality in their Drinking Water Source Protection Program, which is quite the mouthful. And I often cold call people to tell them and try to recruit them to the cause of drinking water protection. And it is problematic when you have to say so many words all back to back before you even can say your name or what the heck you're calling about. So anyways, that's a bit of a rant. So prepare for my portion of the presentation accordingly. All right, and Faye, I'll let you introduce yourself and then get started.
Well, good evening. It's great to be here and see so many friendly faces that I've known for quite a while. I'm Faye Stewart, a life resident of Cottage Grove, and I've been working for the city of Cottage Grove now for a little over 9 years as their public works director. So I'm kind of excited. You wouldn't know it because I'm not really an excitable person, but it's fun to be here this evening to talk about something that is really critically important to the citizens of Cottage Grove. Before I do, I want to say thank you to our city manager. He's here, Mike Sauerwein. Ryan Kimball is here, and he is our water treatment plant superintendent. And my accomplice in crime is here this evening, Shauna Nye. She's our project coordinator for the city. So with that, we'll dive into it, and hopefully I can get us done on our timeline. So a little bit about Cottage Grove then and now. The trivia questions touched on it, but the city of Cottage Grove was incorporated in 1887. And then the city split actually in 1893, where they founded East Cottage Grove, and in 1895 the legislature recognized Lamonti as East Cottage Grove. And it was really my understanding about the post office. Where should the post office be located? So they wanted 2 post offices, one on each side of the river. And then in 1899, the city of Cottage Grove, by legislation, was combined with Lamonti and then was one city moving forward. So early on, the city of Cottage Grove got its water from the headwaters of Lang Creek, Dinner, and Prather Creek. It was 22 miles away from where we are here today. And, you know, it simply amazes me what people did back in those days. I mean, the water line was a wooden water line created and 22 miles away from here. I can't even wrap my head around doing that without today's equipment. So folks were, you know, pretty industrious and they got that done. And the reason they did that is they wanted to be as close to the source as they possibly could to have the best drinking water possible, the cleanest drinking water. My father tells me he was born and raised in Cottage Grove, and he said back in the day when he was growing up, Grandma had to buy colored glasses, drinking glasses, because you didn't know what day you were going to be drinking maybe a little bit muddy water. So, I mean, that's what it was, and that's why they went to the source. And also practices back in the early days in the timber industry, one of the ways they used to move logs down the river or down to the sawmill was they would make a splash dam. They would dam up the water, put the logs in it, and then bust it loose and float the logs down to the mill. So you can only imagine what that would be like to drink the water after that type of activity took place. So where do we get the water today? We get it from a intake right off of Row River. If you're familiar with Cottage Grove and you're going out Row River Road to the east, just as you go across Row River, that's where our intake is. And if you look to the north as you're going over the bridge, that's where you'll see the intake. And our treatment plant grabs the water there and gravity flows it into the treatment plant. The new treatment plant was built and I believe started operation in 2009. A little bit about the plant is that the plant is a membrane filtration plant. So the water comes in to a large tank. It receives some chemicals, flocculants that help remove the suspended materials, the organics, dirt, those different things settle out in the tank, and then it's pumped in through these membrane filters. And when they go through the filters, sorry about that. And here's really just a cutaway of the filters. There's 88 of these filtration cells in each of our racks, and we have 3 racks. And there's, I don't know, thousands of little itty bitty straws, I guess we like to call them, that the water is forced through and it removes any of the materials in the water. And then once that's done, the water will go into a process where there's some chemicals added to it. We got to chlorinate the water, and once it's ready for delivery, it goes to a clear well, and then it's pumped up to the water reservoirs, where the majority of the city receives its water through a gravity system. As the question said, there's 4.2 million gallons of water storage. We probably, to my knowledge, have never filled those reservoirs completely full, but during the summer months we'll be pretty close. Winter months will run a much lower amount of water because winter we're only, the city's using probably close to 1 million, maybe 1.2 million gallons a day, where in the summer months we'll be using 3, I think the most I've heard of since I've been here was about 3.4 million gallons. The question was where the reservoir is located. They're located off of East Madison Street, and that is off of Gateway. If you go underneath I-5, you'll get on East Madison, and you'll go up to the top, and that's where the reservoirs are at the end of that. And that's at an elevation of approximately 800, maybe 810 feet, and it allows us to serve homes that are at an elevation gravity-wise of about approximately 745 feet. Anything over that, then we use a pressure pump system, and we have 2 of those. One is a Taylor pump station for the folks that live up on Taylor. Cottage Heights, and then we have a second one over above the Hidden Valley Golf Course, which is off of Holly Street. All right, so this past year, just a fun fact, in 2025, the city treated 543.9 million gallons. And we currently at the city of Cottage Grove, we have a population of 10,909. Some of the the routine activities that we do is we flush our system regularly. We do flushing, and the reason that we do flushing is to keep the chlorine content at a certain level so that it meets the state standards for drinking requirement quality. If water sits in a pipe and isn't moving, then the chlorination portion of the chlorine actually separates from the water, and then we could potentially be out of compliance with our permit. And we've discussed this, or in the questions, there was approximately 49 miles of water main lines that we maintain that send water around. We have to have a permit that we receive from the Oregon Health Authority to be able to supply water. And in that permit, it has all the restrictions that we have to follow. Ryan, being you're here, how many tests do we have to perform daily so that to meet this requirement?
6, a minimum of 6.
So we do a minimum of 6 tests daily that we have to track and follow and turn into the state to show that we're meeting the limits. Another item we produce is a consumer confidence report. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but I actually have a few here with me that if you're interested, we also have those online. You can get them online at cottagegrove.org. And we have to legally submit one of these each year to the state. And it's a pretty in-depth of all the different tests that we perform. It also tells you the results of those tests, just to ensure that you have access and you have confidence that the water that you're drinking is safe to drink. So I threw in this slide, Water Watch. Water Watch, back when the city of Cottage Grove was building its brand new plant, we have water rights up at the headwaters of Lang, Dinner, and Prather Creek, approximately 12 million gallons worth of water rights per day that we could take. Well, when the city built the brand new plant, they moved to transfer all their water rights down to the new treatment plant. And Water Watch says, hey, wait a minute, you're transferring 12 million gallons of water right down to a plant that only produces 4 million gallons a day. And short resolution was the city lost. But what ended up happening is that there were some items that were included in the decision by the judge that basically added new requirements to Cottage Grove and other water providers. And that is, for Cottage Grove, we, during the summer months or during the critical months of fish habitat, we cannot utilize 100% of our water right. And they call that fish persistence is what takes place. And we have to leave, make sure that there's water in the river for those fish. The next is that we had to perform and adopt a water management conservation plan. And that water management conservation plan, there's one of them up here too that if you're interested, it goes into depth about our water rights and about our requirements as a water provider to inform our citizens of ways to promote reduction of water use, to conserve water. You might see us at the different activities in town over the summer. One notably is our emergency preparedness fair with Party in the Park. We'll have a booth there. Ryan's team has a booth, and they'll hand out items, to reduce your water consumption, water measuring, rain measures, just all different kinds of things. And we are required to provide that and to encourage people to reduce their water. We also are required to make sure that we don't have more than a certain percentage, 10% of our water production is not lost in leaky pipes, so we're checking our pipes. Folks may not know this, but this was one of the reasons why we moved to our automated water system, because we're able to use those automated meters to determine if people have leaks or we have leaks in our system. And so it's helping us to get those fixed and reduce the water that's just treated and lost in the environment. Another item that's required by the Oregon Health Authority is to have a water master plan. And the city is just now finishing up completion of a brand new water master plan. The water master plan goes into great detail. It assesses the entire system, our geography. It helps us plan for where we want to expand new water lines in to provide future development. It also helps us to put together a maintenance and a capital improvements plan for our treatment plant. So it's a pretty in-depth document that's going to help myself and our team be able to invest our dollars in the future to make sense and make good investments in the community as we move forward. So cytotoxins, I don't know if everybody knows about that, but I think it was about 5 years ago, give or take, Salem, you might have heard, they get their water from the Detroit Lake area. And they had, Detroit Lake has blue-green algae, and they produced a cytotoxin, and it actually got into Salem's water system. And so legislation was created after that event to try to get a handle on that, and any water producers that receive their water where they may get blue-green algae is required to do testing. And unfortunately for Cottage Grove, Durena Lake is a known blue-green algae producer, and at times it has tested positive for cytotoxins, which are toxic. So the legislation applies to the city of Cottage Grove during certain months. I believe it starts in May and it'll go through October. And we are mandated to take tests on a weekly basis. If by any chance we get a test that's positive for a cytotoxin, then we have increased tests. And heaven forbid if we get it in the system and we get it in our treated water, then we got to do boil notices and let people know that they can't drink the water, and it's not a good thing. So fortunately for us, that's never happened. I believe we've only had one or two detects at the intake and nothing beyond that. So fortunately, that hasn't hit us. But as a result, we are actually, we got funded by the Oregon Health Authority for $125,000 to do a cytotoxin treatment feasibility study that we are currently in about the middle of that effort, with it to be done at the end of this year, I believe. And that feasibility study will help us know what we can add to our current treatment plant as far as equipment to treat the water if we ever were to get blue-green algae or a cytotoxin in it. So we're trying to prepare ourselves. Once we have the plan, then we'll be watching the legislature and the various different entities for grant opportunities to be able to try to purchase that equipment and get it installed. So next is Laura.
Faye will be coming back later. We're tag teaming it. So we're going to pivot here to talking about drinking water source protection, which all of the things that Faye has been talking about are really important parts of how clean, safe, high-quality drinking water is delivered to communities. It's having an intake, putting it through a plant, distribution lines, all of the different requirements that water systems have to do because they're required by the state or by federal law to do so. Water system master plans, cyanotoxin studies, water conservation management plans. These are not choices the water system can make. You have to do it, and it all costs a lot of money. I was sort of shocked at a community like Cottage Grove having 49 miles of distribution piping it has to maintain. I'm helping some water systems try to access grant funding to do projects having to do with pipes. It is a shockingly high number of dollars required to do even simple line repairs on a couple 100 feet, let alone 49 miles. These are like huge public benefits to the community that are happening. And since I joined the Drinking Water Source Protection Program about 4 years ago, it's just a whole side of communities in public works that I had no idea existed. And I've learned a lot. So all of those things are really important, and it has nothing to do necessarily with drinking water source protection. So what the heck is drinking water source protection? Essentially, source water is any water that's being extracted from a spring, from the ground, from a stream or a river to be used for drinking water purposes. And we can say that the source of any drinking water that you're extracting is the area contributing to where you're pulling that water. So drinking water intake like Cottage Grove has on the Row River is pretty straightforward. You have an intake in the river, and the entire watershed area, that if a drop of rain were to fall in it, it would flow towards the intake, is the drinking water source area. If you have a groundwater well in the ground, it is sucking from an aquifer that we can't see. It's like black magic, kind of. Groundwater is mysterious and amazing. But there are ways of looking at how water is being sucked, from what depth it's being sucked, and then mapping how long it takes for water in that aquifer to travel on a certain part of the land surface, and we call it the time of travel. So you can, on the ground, from a groundwater well, figure out from which area of contributing land surface is water flowing on a 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year timeline. And from that, you can determine drinking water protection or source areas. And you can say, if something really bad were to happen at this location on the land, a diesel spill, some weird underground storage tank is leaking gasoline at a automotive fueling station, it's gonna travel into the aquifer, and within a certain number of years, your well will pick it up. So depending on what source of water you're drinking, the groundwater drinking water source area looks different. But that's what drinking water sources are. That's how we define them. And anything that's drinking water source protection is actions that we're taking to reduce the risk of anything happening to your source of drinking water. All right, what and where? Potential contaminant sources and source water assessments. I didn't realize that those acronyms were in the title. That's my bad. Nobody knows what a PCS or an SWA is except people who work in this field. I can tell you a PCS is a potential contaminant source. And it's important to note that they can be natural and they can be human caused. There are things that are happening on the landscape. Landslides happen because nothing other than there was a really big storm and a slope gave way. But there are also human actions that can make landslides more likely to happen. Like if you cut all the trees down in a clear cut on a really intense slope angle, and then you have a big storm, and then maybe that soil wouldn't have given way had it not been for some human intervention. So we have an interplay between natural factors on the landscape that can introduce contamination into sources of drinking water, and we have human actions. And we have a really long legacy of human actions that have been building up over decades and decades of time and are sort of culminating in where we are today. And so, yes, it can be natural, it can be human caused, it can be natural things that are amplified by humans intervening in the system. So all of those things are potential sources of causing contamination in our source water. This little graphic, I like it. There's a lot going on. The things that can contaminate your water are different if you're a groundwater source or a surface water source. And there are things that can contaminate your water that have nothing to do with you. Something I was noodling about before coming tonight was that in the Willamette Valley, there is currently an effort from the Department of Environmental Quality to develop this clean water plan. It's called the Total Maximum Daily Load. It's what DEQ develops to try to clean up water bodies that have been identified as not meeting water quality standards. In the Willamette, they're exceeding mercury criteria in the water. The mercury is being deposited from the air. It's atmospheric deposition of mercury coming from all over the world. It lands on the soil, and then the soil is being eroded into the water, and then the mercury is in the water. So the whole goal of the mercury TMDL in the Willamette Basin is to stop soil movement into the water, but it's all because of atmospheric deposition. That blew my mind. There's some crazy stuff happening out there on the landscape. So maybe the pollution is happening here. Maybe it's happening in China or somewhere else. Who knows where the mercury is coming from, in all God's honest truth. Okay, so lots of different ways for contamination to get into drinking water before I suck it into my groundwater well or I put it in my drinking water intake. So the Drinking Water Protection Program is an interagency program. It's this wonderful merriment where state agencies are actually talking to each other, which sometimes is really difficult to happen because we get siloed and we're all really focused on our specific thing. And sometimes we don't talk to each other, and that can create problems. And it's really confusing because if you want to do something with the state government, whatever you think the agency is you should contact probably isn't. Or whatever section of the agency you think you should look at probably isn't the right section. There's like a program you've never heard of, like the Drinking Water Source Protection Program. That exists, and you don't know how to get to it. But in Oregon, the Oregon Health Authority is the regulator for drinking water. So they're the ones who get money from the federal government to make sure that public water systems in Oregon are meeting requirements of the Safe Drinking Water Act. Since early days, the 90s, they've partnered with the Department of Environmental Quality, and they give us money for me to have a job so that I can only focus on drinking water protection. So that's pretty cool. And actually, I got the privilege this spring to go to a conference. It's called Western States. And every other year, some state in Western United States takes turn hosting it. And it's just people who work in drinking water source protection for all the different states. And I learned that Oregon has the largest drinking water source protection program. Right? We had 5 people on our staff, and some states have 1. And there's something else cool that I'll let you know later, because it's like a little surprise, so I want to leave you with bated breath. Okay, so in Oregon Health Authority, they're regulating. They're supposed to be doing some source water protection stuff too, and they do. But they're regulating too. They're like showing up and making sure water systems are turning in their water quality tests and that stuff is happening and treatment is being installed. That's a lot. So they have just given Department of Environmental Quality kind of full reign on like all we have to do is focus on providing technical assistance to public water systems to try to help them take actions that keep source water clean and safe. So that's cool. I should also not forget my notes. I had important things to say on slides. Number 16, yes. Okay, a little history. Safe Drinking Water Act was first passed in 1974. It was amended, I'm getting ahead of myself. In 1993, Oregon State Legislature considered a bill that would make drinking water protection a regulatory requirement. So water systems would have to do it. It was that true-false question. Water systems would have to include drinking water protection as part of their water system plans. And there was like a tumult. I wasn't in Oregon at the time, and I was only very young, so I don't know all of the political drama, but apparently there was a tumult, and people did not want another regulatory requirement. So it failed. Okay, 3 years later, the Safe Drinking Water Act had some major amendments. Part of these amendments was that states were told they had to, for each public water system in the state, provide a delineation. They had to tell every public water supplier, based on where they were diverting water, what their source water area was, and then provide an assessment that told them what the potential sources of contamination were to their water source. Okay, then Oregon decided in the late 90s they were going to create a voluntary source water protection program. And there was all of this effort to get a statewide citizens advisory board. They came up with a way of being able to assess the relative risk from different sources of contamination. Risk is different based on whether you're a groundwater or surface water source. I'm probably going too fast. I get going. So then we had a voluntary source water protection program. No water provider had to take any action to prevent contamination of their source. And in 2005, Oregon had completed source water assessments for approximately 2,660 different water systems. And that's a lot of work. And we've been doing updated source water assessments because if you know what GIS mapping technology is, it's a way of being able to put locational data onto maps on the computer and do some pretty cool stuff. We've been putting updated maps together that are way better than the original source water assessments. So what does our program do? We support public water systems, specifically public water systems. You have to have more than 4 connections or be serving more than 10 people for more than 6 months of the year. It gets very complicated. I could throw some jargon around. You could be a transient community, a transient water system, transient non-community, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. Non-transient, non-community, transient, non-community, community, Oregon very small, and then you're domestic. So anybody who is serving less than 4 connections or 10 people is a domestic user, and you're on your own. So I just want to do like a call out that if you're on a private groundwater well, I'm one of them. I'm on a groundwater well. You are required for making sure that your water is safe to drink for all of your treatment technologies. If you have source water concerns, you pay for testing. There really is not a lot of support for you. There's minor support through the Oregon Health Authority domestic well program, but it's not well funded. And they are primarily focused on helping people who live in the lower Umatilla Basin groundwater management area because they've had some crazy nitrate contamination over on the east side you might have heard about. So our program, we support public water systems. We coordinate with Oregon Health Authority. We have regular meetings with Oregon Health Authority to be on the same page about what's going on. We provide these source water assessments. We have GIS data layers that we maintain. It's pretty cool. We're the only program I know of in the state that takes all of the regulatory databases about potential sources of contamination and combines them into one place so you can just go to one map and see all of these potential contaminants from like fire marshals, CAFA, or confined animal feeding operations, water quality limited streams, DEQ permits, point source permits where wastewater treatment plants have outfalls, or where there's stormwater permitting. We combine it all together, and people use it a lot, especially people writing permits, looking where to place underground injection control, if you've never heard of that. It's like a hole in the ground where they put the water so that it can infiltrate into the soil when there's a lot of rain. But you want to put them in the right place. So there you go. We work with Oregon Department of Agriculture. We tried to do our best, and we try to assist with agricultural water quality management plans, which are probably a whole nother set of things you've never heard about, which are being used to try to guide actions in certain parts of the state that have agricultural land uses. Okay, source water assessment reports. This is what we developed, our program, for every public water system in Oregon. It has information on land use and ownership. There's maps. We use these regulatory databases to say, here are things in your source water area that could be a potential contamination risk if people are doing stupid things. Because ultimately our program says, if you're following best management practices for whatever you're doing, you have a low risk of contaminating sources of drinking water. And it's when people are not following best management practices that you have a risk. And if you have things that are high risk and you don't know what people are doing, that's not so good. So we developed these reports. These are some crazy maps, so I apologize. On the left, this is from City of Cottage Grove's source water assessment report. You can see hopefully, there's like a water droplet on the left. That's the city's intake on the ROW. And this weird black shape is an 8-hour time of travel. So water on an average flow calculation, would take 8 hours to travel from the outer perimeter of that black polygon to the city's intake. So it's a way of helping water systems with really big source water areas, which Cottage Grove has a really big one, prioritize for areas that are most likely to impact their intakes the quickest. And the one on the right, that map, is a close-up. And I'll tell you, the orange is industrial forest land. Brown is BLM. That weird blobby thing that on the right is like outlined in pink right in the middle, that's Dorina Reservoir. You can see maybe kind of close to the intake, there's like a circle with like a hammers crossed, that's mining sites. Underground storage tanks. Each of these different symbols on the map, like the triangles, the circles, they're all different types of potential contaminant sources that have been pulled out of the regulatory databases. And those are the things we know about because they have to report. It's like part of a regulatory database. We don't know about people who have junkyards, people who are illegally camping and maybe like throwing weird stuff on the ground, people who are just maybe private landowners and maybe not following best practices on their properties. That yellow area near the city's intake is all rural, residential, private property. So when the city moved from Lang Creek to Row River for their source, they got the benefit of having their intake really close to a treatment plant and of having access to more water for more times of the year. But they also went from a drinking water source area of 37,000 acres to 238,000 acres. And Lang Creek is 97% their source water area owned by U.S. Forest Service. And Row River, the drinking water source area, just within the 8-hour time of travel, is 5% agriculture, over 50% industrial forest, 20% private landowners, 20% BLM. So when looking at the land use and the potential risk to a drinking water source, Row River is way more complicated. And another note here is that on the left, there's like this little yellow blob right here. That's Lang Creek's drinking water source area. It's all green because it's owned by U.S. Forest Service. That little tiny blip of orange is the one tract of industrial forest land. So the potential contaminant sources that either of these sources has to consider, drastically different. Okay, so why do we even care about this? Aren't we going to treat it? I'll laugh. Okay, so yeah, the treatment plant is awesome. And City of Cottage Grove has membrane plant treatment, which is super cutting edge technology. It's like some of the best treatment plant technology out there. I work with water systems that are still running systems like slow sand. Not to diss slow sand. It's a really great treatment technology, but it's really it's like susceptible to a lot of dirt in the water. And so if you have dirt in the water, especially if you don't have any way of dropping that dirt out before it hits your treatment filters, you have a lot of problems. I'm not gonna wax about it, but there are issues out there, people. There are issues like public water systems in our state that can't run and make water because the rain comes and the water is like too turbid, and then they're gonna like run out of water because it won't stop raining and clear up because it's like they'll destroy their filters if they try to move it through. So membrane treatment filtration is really high edge technology. It's really good. All about it. But there are new chemicals and emerging contaminants that we have to consider. Emerging contaminants include pharmaceuticals, PFAS, PFOS, 6-PPD, quinone, microplastics, pesticides and herbicides, fire suppressants. In DEQ's ambient water quality monitoring that we do throughout the state, pharmaceuticals are virtually ubiquitous in every site. And the city isn't monitoring for pharmaceuticals. Like, it's just not one of the requirements for what the city has to test for as part of the Safe Drinking Water Act. And many pollutants are not regulated. EPA regulates over 90 of the most common water pollutants, but there's way more than 90 potential contaminants that could be in a drinking water source. And the timing is all over the place. The city regularly samples on a 3-year timeline for semi-volatile and volatile organic compounds, including pesticides. But timber operations are happening all the time. And so, the most likely time to pick up a pesticide or herbicide hit is in the first flush of the season. So people are spraying during the summer, and then your first rainstorm hits, and that's the most likely time that things will mobilize and be in the water. But water systems can take their sample. It's once every 3 years, and depending on their timing, there isn't actually a requirement for when they collect the sample. So if you're not testing at the right time, you might miss it. I would also say that most chemicals, the toxicology may not exist, or the toxicological reports were developed just for that single contaminant, for that single chemical. And most of our chemicals are occurring in the environment in mixtures and at low levels. And we don't actually have a great understanding of what the chronic impact of exposure to low-level contaminants is that's much under the maximum contaminant level at which a water system would have to install treatment. And we don't have a good understanding of how those chemicals mix together. So there's a lot of uncertainty, and the best technology cannot remove all contaminants. So from a public health perspective, it makes sense to try to be protective. And that's why I think drinking water source protection makes a lot of sense. So the takeaway is when water quality is compromised, it's actually communities that shoulder the burden. There are examples. I'm not going to list them here, but maybe you could raise your hand and ask if you were really curious after the presentation ends. There are examples of water systems in Oregon that have been running treatment technology since the 70s or 80s. It was working fine. Changes in land use happened in their source water area. They started getting more sediment in their source water, and they couldn't keep up. And so they needed to build a new treatment plant for millions of dollars. And the things that are happening upstream from our communities, the communities aren't benefiting from those activities more than less. People don't own that land. They don't have a say in what's happening on it. But if things show up at your intake or in your well, it's the public water system that has to pay for the treatment and has to deal with it. I know water systems that are nervous to sample for pesticides and herbicides when it's most likely to detect. I'm not talking about Cottage Grove right now, because if you get a hit, you have to start testing more frequently, and pesticide and herbicide samples are really expensive. And people are already really concerned about how much money they're paying in their water bills, and they are really upset when they have to pay more. So any sense of detecting contaminants can lead to an issue where the water system is having to take more samples more frequently. Just PFAS and PFOS, it's like $900 per sample the water system has to take. That's being covered right now by the state through some emerging contaminants funds that are being accessed from the federal government. But as soon as PFAS, once it becomes a regulated contaminant, which it's not right now, water systems are gonna have to shoulder that cost. And there are a lot of water systems, small groundwater systems, that currently don't have any treatment. Like, you literally don't have to treat that groundwater to serve it to your consumers. And if you have that sort of contaminant in your system, it's likely, it's not your fault, but you're gonna have to install some expensive treatment and have a higher level of operator certification. Anyways, the answer, drinking water source protection and seeing the source area around your well or your intake as natural infrastructure that complements your built physical infrastructure of your intake, your plant, or your lines. All right, the last thing I'll say before I pass it back to Faye, I haven't been watching my time, so I'm probably way over. I'm on a rant. Okay. Another cool thing about Oregon is that we get money from the federal government, and there's a small percentage of it we can decide how to spend it. And Oregon has consistently decided that they want to give grants to public water systems to do drinking water protection projects. Any public water system is eligible. They don't have to provide any match, which is huge. A lot of water systems are really small, and match is like the money the water system has to pony up in order to get the project done. So no match requirement, really low reporting requirements generally speaking, and it's flexible. You just have to be reducing risk within your drinking water source area. It happens every year. And as of June 2025, this grant has provided almost $3 million of funding to 97 completed projects across 107 water systems benefiting 1,775,000 Oregonians. And when I went to that Western States Conference this spring, Oregon is the only state that had a grant program like this. None of the other states in Western United States had it. The best that was available was in Colorado. If you complete a drinking water protection plan, you can get a $5,000 chunk to go towards some sort of project. This year, Oregon is accepting grants for up to $70,000 per project for drinking water source protection. So I just think that's super, super cool and something that's a little bit unique. We may not have a regulatory requirement for water systems to do something, but if water systems do want to act, there is a funding source, a grant that's available.
Wow, that was great. Laura talked about some of the things that we look at for our drinking water protection plan. So back in 2015, the city of Cottage Grove created a drinking water protection plan. And it touched on all the items that Laura mentioned. So what kind of things are impacting or can impact our water before we take it and treat it to drink it. And as was discussed, when the city made the decision to move the intake or capture their water from Lang Creek headwaters down to where we are today, that opened the door for a lot of, as she showed, over 200 and some thousand acres of things that could impact our water. Most everybody that lives out in the county has a septic system. Well, if you live next to the river and your septic system isn't operating correctly, it can put nitrates and stuff into the water, which is a contaminant. We have a lake that is popular for fishing and for boating. Petroleum generally powers those boats, and if you had a spill in the lake, that could be an issue. There's main roads up through that area on both sides of the lake and along the rivers that can also be a direct conduit for contaminants to get into the water. And today, we're learning about these things that we didn't know anything about, like our forever chemicals and microplastics and various different things. One of the contaminants that we probably don't think about when we drive our car is when we hit the brakes, that we have brake dust that gets washed into the river system. And we also have tires that are wearing down, and those products get into our water system. So maybe our forefathers that actually located 22 miles away from the city, they were onto something back then, because as was shown, one of the things that we were able to take advantage of for years and years is that because our water system was at the headwaters of Lang Creek and Dinner and Prather, the United States Forest Service had to manage that watershed in a way to protect the water. So they didn't allow for, some intensive logging and various different things to impact the system. And today, as Laura showed in those maps, we're subject to all kinds of private extraction of different things. And the other thing too that, we don't realize is what's being precipitated out in our air that's landing down in our water system. So those things might keep you up at night if you tended to want to look them at. But that being said, so we created a plan in 2015, and we were blessed this past year with a $50,000 grant from the Oregon Health Authority to create a new updated plan. And this plan will be looking at all those new items, the forever chemicals and the things that we didn't study back in 2015, the algae and the various different things. And that plan will create, it's going to document those things, and it's going to create items that we can do as a city to protect our water. So another way that the city is working to protect our water and extend our water rights, because water rights, we have what we have. We most likely will not acquire any more water rights into the future. And the city has 12 million gallons of water rights per day that we could use if we had the need for it. Right now we're certificated for 6 million gallons at the water treatment plant, and we're utilizing less than 4 million gallons a day on average at our peak period. So if we can find ways to reduce the burden on our current treated drinking water system and extend the water rights, that's to the benefit of the city and the citizens that live here. And one of the ways that we're doing that right now is we're taking our treated effluent from the wastewater treatment plant, and we are utilizing it in various different areas. We're utilizing it at the golf course, the interchange at 174. Our city staff just completed extending an effluent water line down to Bohemia Park, Trailhead Park, and we have the ability to expand it to other city-owned parks. And this is key because up until this year, we've been using treated drinking water on our parks to keep them green, and that's a huge burden. So as we can replace those areas in summer months with treated drinking, or with treated effluent than treated drinking water, we're extending our plant capacity life, we're extending our water rights, and right now, if we do things right, we hopefully just continue to maintain, make upgrades to the facility, and our current facility will have enough production capabilities of meeting the needs over the next 50 years. So that's big and important. And the last thing I had to say, I'd be remiss if I didn't share the partnership that we have with the Coast Fork Watershed Council. You know, before I became a public works director, as a commissioner, I sat on probably 4 watershed councils. Coast Fork Watershed Council is an incredible organization that's doing great things, and if you don't know what they are, go to their website and check it out. But what they do for the city of Cottage Grove is our partnership is that they are improving riparian zones, doing plantings. They help us with shade credits. Most recently, they're helping us maintain our stormwater structures that filter the stormwater before it's released. Probably the last 5 years, we've had a wonderful blessing from the Coast Fork Watershed Council. They have supplied us anywhere from 1 to 2 youth that have been able to work beside our city staff, mowing grass, picking up garbage, doing various different things. So the partnership that we have is, you know, amazing in my book. The city contributes $5,000 a year to the Watershed Council, and they take that money and use it for match, and it parlays it probably in excess of 20 times what we give it. So they're doing great things in our area, and our partnership is helping us be able to ensure that we're doing the best we can to protect our water source and improve it over the years. So thank you, Coast Fork Watershed.
All right, I've got a couple thoughts while I've been sitting at the table. This is off topic, but related. It's my own public service announcement. Flushable wipes are not flushable. If you live on a septic system with a domestic well, you will suffer your own consequences because the costs that you incur by wrecking your system with these wipes that are not going to decompose and are going to clog your drain field, if they even get that far, it's false advertisement. But how many people have I talked to who work in the wastewater treatment world for communities? These wipes cause more problems than maybe anything else. So anyways, I just wanted to say, don't believe the lie, throw it in the garbage, only pee, poop, and toilet paper in your toilet, please. So that's just a totally random thing, but I wanted to say it.
And if I can add to that, I got to tour, I went out to the treatment plant today and we had a pump failure. I don't know that I can blame it on flushable wipes, but there was a lot of flushable wipes wrapped around that pump. So please don't. The other thing that would be really helpful too is we can't treat fats, greases, and oils. So please don't just deposit your bacon grease and different things down the sink, because that ends up being a major problem for our pipes plugging, and we can't really treat it very effectively at the plant. And the other item which I'm remiss about is part of our new drinking water protection plan update is there's a public component. There's going to be public involvement and committee folks that we'd like to get interested. So there's a sign-up sheet here. If you have any interest in being a part of this updated drinking water protection plan, please sign up and we'll be in touch with you to get you involved.
Please do come and put your name or your phone number or however you want to be contacted, because the City of Cottage Grove, it's difficult reaching the public to get engagement. And so part of the effort here tonight is coming where people go, like not having something that's set up that, like, it's like, where are the people coming to? And you are the people. So if you put your name down, what you'll get is updates on the city's drinking water protection plan update process. And you will be notified by the way that you choose to write down your information to know when there's opportunities for public comment, when there's going to be meetings to discuss what's being developed. Anyways, so please do take advantage of that sign-up sheet, because it's a really great way if you care about that and you want to be involved. Water systems need partners. This is voluntary. There isn't funding to support it, and you may have an idea of a cool partnership opportunity or a funding sources that could be tapped into. There's all sorts, like, we are stronger together in doing work that protects the drinking water for us all.
Yes, big round of applause. Woo! Alrighty. The City of Cottage Grove was first incorporated in the year of 1887. That is A, 1887. So that is A, 1887. Then this is on to question 2. How many gallons of treated water storage does the City of Cottage Grove have? It is 4.2 million gallons, and that is C, 4.2 million gallons. Question 3. Which creek did Cottage Grove receive the first water rights to? And that is A, Lane Creek. Alrighty, what filtration system does the city use? It is D, membrane treatment vessels. That's question 4D for membrane treatment vessels, not Brita. I know, I had you all fooled. Alrighty, question 5. The year the Oregon legislature approved combining the towns of Cottage Grove and Lamati was in 1899. 1899. Alrighty. Then the Oregon county with the fewest water systems was B, Wheeler County. Question 7. So the opposite of that, which Oregon county has the most? It is indeed D, Clackamas County. Wheeler has 9 public water systems, while Clackamas has, one more time, Laura? 356. That's significant. Alrighty, question 8. If you couldn't guess, all of these are examples of drinking water protection in a watershed that provides water to the community. 5, all of the above, so give yourself a pat on the back. We love all of these things. Question 9. More Oregonians who rely on community public water systems for their water supply drink groundwater than surface water. And that is B, false. So that means more drink surface water. Pretty interesting. I had a lot of fun with these questions. And last question. Question 10. How many miles of water distribution lines does the city have? It is C, at 49 miles. 49 miles, and that is C. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, you guys. I really enjoyed that, and I'm so grateful to you all for participating.